You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Lucas Gienow. Lucas is a music producer, audio engineer, and songwriter currently based out of Eastern Pennsylvania, USA. Lucas's engineering career has always been driven by the need to be able to produce, mix, and master his own music. He has a bachelor's degree in music from Lebanon Valley College with an emphasis in recording technology, and since graduating has over 5 years of experience songwriting and engineering for projects, both personal and professional. Former guest of the show, Carl Bonner, actually recommended I reach out to Lucas, so it's a pleasure to have him on. Welcome to the show, Lucas.
Man, thank you so much for that, and thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to talk to you. I really enjoyed Carl's episode. It was actually my first time hearing of you. And I've been digging through on my drives since I can't stand listening to music in the car. It's fantastic, man. So thank you.
I know that.
Yeah. Too much music all the time.
Yes. Sometimes you need to detach from what you work on and take a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up. Well, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. Tell me a bit about your story. How did you get started?
So I'll make it quick, but from the very beginning, I became interested in music because my dad, he played drums for a living out of high school, was always a big music influence in my family, sang in a church choir, you know. My parents were very supportive of that, as well as some great music teachers along the way. I went to a Dave Matthews Band concert when I was 16, saw them playing, and I was like, I think that I want to, you know, there's nothing else I can think that I'd want to do more for a living. And then when it came time to pick colleges, I was like, I need to go for something that involves music because it's the only thing I care about, but I don't want to do performance. I don't want to be a teacher. So I found Lebanon Valley College, close to where I live, and they had a music recording program, and I was like, that sounds awesome. So I signed up for that. Through that program, I found an internship in Nashville, Tennessee, at a recording studio. And that was, I'd say, the biggest growing summer of my life, you know, as far as living on my own and what I learned. I had a fantastic internship supervisor, Dustin Richardson, who's now an awesome friend of mine. And he's actually mixed a lot of the songs that my band has released. But I could go on forever, but basically, I became an engineer by accident. I started to try to learn all these things just so I could record and produce myself. And along the way, to make money, you know, I would learn how to tune my vocals, or I would learn how to mix better. And then people would come to me and say, hey, I'll toss you some money if you tune my vocals. I'll toss you some money if you record a demo for this song I'm writing. And the next thing you know, I'm starting to pick it up more and more to the point where I was like, I could just make this, you know, a career. I can make this my thing. So it was always something in the back of my mind, but it was never the full goal until recently.
Wow. Are you still balancing, I guess, your career aspirations as a audio engineer, producer versus your, you know, goals as an artist, songwriter? Like, is that still a dilemma or something that you're thinking about?
Well, it's a huge dilemma, and the reason being is that the producing and the mixing, that's money now. That's stuff that people are willing to pay for right now, you know, and especially as someone who's married and I have a stepchild, and, you know, we're planning to have another kid, you know, in the next couple of years, and I need to be able to provide for my family, but at the same time, my real passion has always been the music that I make. I'm in a band, I don't think I mentioned the name yet, Nearly York. Do alternative pop music.
We'll get into that, I guess, later on in the podcast for sure.
But it's hard, and the guys and I are always focusing on what can we do to continue to, you know, get more listeners, get more people, you know, to at least see who we are and what we do. Especially with COVID, you know, we were actually making strides, making more money playing gigs, and obviously that's gone. So since COVID, the producing and mixing has actually increased, and I think it's just because a lot of artists are stuck at home and they have nothing to do but make more music. So in a weird way, it's been beneficial for my producing and mixing career, but it certainly hasn't been for the artist side. But I think both can coexist.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I definitely think there's room for both. Having actually done a tour now, it's like interesting to see how like both of those things kind of interrelate, you know?
Absolutely.
They're interrelated. They're different. Like performing live sound is completely different than studio sound.
Oh, night and day. Absolutely.
But you can learn a bit about each from both, I think.
Of course. Yeah, they definitely carry a lot of the same, like, you learn EQ when you're, mixing in the studio. You can understand how to EQ somewhat for live. I know they're a little different, but they pull from each other for sure.
Did you have like an aha moment when you realized, oh shit, like I'm doing music or I'm doing production, like this is happening?
Yeah, I was working at this studio called the Sugar Tank in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and this artist came in. He was a rapper. I'd never worked on anything close to rap before. Milan Cradle was his name, and he came in and he had like a 12-song album, and the main engineer at the studio, he was like, I don't have time. Will you work with this guy? And when he told me what the budget for the project was, I was like, I'm not going to say any numbers, but it was the first time anybody had thrown like real money on the table. And I was like, oh my God, like I can make that much just to do this. And, I'm in the studio working with him, getting paid by the hour to track. And then I'm getting paid per song to mix. And Milan was an amazing first client because he was so respectful of my time, and like I really lucked out. But I remember working on that record and just sitting in the room and being like, I felt like a professional, So I'd say that was it. That was only about a year after I graduated from school that really happened.
That sounds like an awesome streak of luck. Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it was.
Wait, speaking of your experiences, I want to go back a little bit and talk about your internship, because that seems like it was like a really important part of your life. So how did you get this internship, and how did you find your mentor?
So I had an internship lined up in Philadelphia at a recording studio that fell through. The studio closed 2 weeks before the internship deadline with the school for me to get an actual accredited internship. So I posted in a Facebook group, the LVC alumni group. It was my last chance. I was like, does anybody know of any studio that might be taking an intern this summer? I really need help. And someone I'd never met before reached out. Her name's Roxy. And she said, hey, I live in Nashville. My friend has a friend who is opening a new studio, and they're looking for their first intern. And I was like, Nashville, I'd never even considered going that far away from home. But I said, sure, I'll take it. And Roxy put me up for 2 weeks just out of the kindness of her heart before the place I was staying opened up for the summer. She's become one of my lifelong friends. Her and John, her boyfriend, they're amazing people. But yeah, so I wound up at the studio, and then it gets crazier because the studio owner was originally my intern supervisor, but he was not doing a lot out of the studio at that time. He owned it. He didn't have a ton of projects coming in, but Dustin, the guy I mentioned earlier, he was working out of the studio, and he was constantly mixing and engineering. So he had no business being involved with me, but he offered to Hunt to allow me to work under him. And then I just spent the entire summer sitting next to him, asking him questions, in and out of sessions, editing drums, tuning vocals, things that I use every day now. He taught me how to do all those things. And it was the best decision I ever made when it comes to music.
Wow, that's really awesome. I feel like so many of us, we kind of get into this doing it like, the lone wolf approach, and we just kind of start opening up computers, building loops, whatever it is, and we don't even realize that there are people that know how to do this that we could learn from.
Yeah.
So that's pretty dope that you were able to find a mentor and somebody that you could actually sit and learn from on a consistent basis for a long time. I feel
extremely lucky for that. And I mean, he's even gone as far as, we can talk about this later too, but I have a co-publishing deal in Nashville, and I fly every other month when times aren't COVID, to write. Right. And I got that through connections that Dustin continued to help me make in town. I never would have been able to do that if I didn't have friends like him and Roxy and John who put me up for free every time I go, So like taking that first jump has led to so many more opportunities than I could have possibly imagined. So
wow, that's amazing. So tell me a bit about Nashville. Like, yeah, it's really interesting that you fly there, every other month, and you have these songwriting sessions. I guess you told me a little bit in advance that you kind of have a specific role in these songwriting sessions. Do you mind telling the audience what those sessions look like and what your roles are?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I'm planning another trip, I contact Mike Sprinkle, who is the guy that runs the publishing company that I work with, and he reaches out to people and sets up rights. Before I was with them, I would just fly down and ask my friends, because everyone's a songwriter in Nashville, do you have any friends that would be interested in just writing with me so that I could start to build up a songwriting catalog? But Mike reaches out to people and sets rights up for me now, and when I go down, I get in the room, and if you haven't written before a lot as like in a co-writing session, usually it's good to find people that have different specialties when it comes to writing. There's a guy I love writing with. His name's Ken Cooper, and he is a lyrical mastermind. He's an ex-NASA rocket scientist, which is crazy in its own right. But he can sit down with his little like laptop and I'll start playing a riff on my guitar and I'll sing 2 or 3 words, and the next thing I know, he's got 3 verses just pumped out on the paper, and it's amazing. Where I feel the most comfortable in a songwriting session is with melody. Usually I'll bring in an initial idea, like a little hook or half a hook that I think sounds cool that I've just been messing around with. And then I'm also the tracks guy, which, if we write a song that we all like and we feel like is worth being pitched, people will get in the room with me that I otherwise don't necessarily have business being in the room with, because they'll get a cheap or free demo out of it, which is like my bargaining chip. Like, write with me because I can do that. Everything's about what can you do for the people, especially when you don't have experience. What can you do for the people with more experience that will allow you in that room? And so that's my, I've gotten better with lyrics. Country wasn't my first, love in music. I love it now, but I'm still learning how to write a great country song when it comes to lyrics. So those other things are kind of where I gravitate towards. I hope that answers the question. I know.
Yeah. So you're basically running the DAW. You're maybe building the tracks.
Absolutely.
And you're helping facilitate better melodies and maybe chord structures, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I am throwing in lyric ideas when they present themselves, but I'm not pitched to a group of writers because I'm the lyric guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Does everybody get like an equal share in these songwriting sessions?
In the Nashville songwriting scheme, if you're in the room, it's split evenly. And that's just the way that it goes. And I actually prefer that because I don't know. The biggest way I feel like to ruin friendships is to start getting into the nitty gritty of, well, I don't know, I came up with most of the hook and you just wrote that one. Like, if we're going to sit down and do it, we're going to do it. And if you don't like how this person contributed, don't write with them again,
Right, because it's not objective. Like, it's completely subjective to say, like, oh, this part is the bass line I wrote is the most important part of the song, and your lyric is like 5%. Like, how the hell do you even know that?
It's impossible. You just take that split and you move on.
And then everybody has a stake in the game, right?
Exactly.
Like if everybody has...
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about your band. Your record sounds really awesome. Tell me a bit about what your vision was for that record and how you went about realizing that.
Thank you so much, man. So like everybody else, the 6-song EP, I believe that's the one you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the guys and I in the group have a lot of alternative pop influences that we like to pull from, especially for that record that we were trying to go for. Lonnie, the band Gienow, the 1975, Coldplay, Foster the People, some of our influences that we really enjoy. And so, the goal was to kind of get away from the singer-songwriter-y sound of our previous record and tried to come up with, I've produced for other people, but to kind of incorporate synth elements into our own band sound and make it more than just a live rock band, Another goal was to go down to Nashville and complete this loop of having my former internship supervisor, Dustin, now become our engineer and track and mix the record. So we did all the production in this room I'm sitting in right now in my bedroom, and then we went down to Nashville and tracked at Dustin and his roommate Elton's studio. It's called Studio 2300. And we spent 4 days there and then came back, and it was a constant back and forth between me and Dustin to finish getting the production right, and then he mixed it, and it was a dream come true. Sounds really cheesy, but it was so cool to finally be working with him as a professional and not as like the guy learning from,
Nice. What was that experience like? The back and forth, like tweaking the production. Like, what went into that? Like, what was that about?
Brad and I, Brad is the guitarist in my band, and then Chris Mundy, he's a drummer. And Brad and I have always been really particular about how we want things to sound.